Hi there, and welcome to my channel. My name is Dorothy Iso, and I am from Dr. D _ PhD, Mastering the Art of Teaching and Learning. If you are new to my channel, please do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you are the first to know when I post videos on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now today's guest is an academic and a very well-known academic in education circles right around the country. He's also a colleague of mine. Please listen as I tell you a little bit more about Dr. Zayd Waghid. Thank you. Dr. Zayd Waghid is a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Education at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. He has taught for more than 6 years in the further education and training band and for more than 4 years in higher education. He completed his doctorate at Stellenbosch University in 2014 in Education Policy Studies with a focus on economics education. His primary research interest is in the cultivation of critical pedagogies in education through technology. Dr. Waghid received the CPUT Teaching Excellence Awards at departmental, faculty, and institutional levels for 2017, 2018, and 2019 respectively. It is therefore my absolute honor to welcome Dr. Zayd Waghid to my channel, Dr. D _ PhD, Mastering the Art of Teaching and Learning. Hi, Dr. Zayd Waghid, and welcome to my channel.
Thank you, Dr. Dorothy. I'm quite honored to be part of this channel, and thank you for the invite.
It's lovely to have you. Zayd, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you are currently doing.
Okay, so I started out as a teacher at a historically disadvantaged school in Cape Town. And I started about in 2009, which is actually about 11 years ago. So it's actually the school I attended as a school learner. And it was quite a strange experience, just exiting university and entering the teaching fraternity and having to teach with your colleagues who are actually your teachers. So it was quite a strange experience for me, but a welcoming, fruitful experience as well. But prior to my entering the education context, I initially started out with a Bachelor of Commerce degree, which is in contrast to what education is about, because when you're looking at commerce, you think, oh, it's capitalism, it's money, it's profits, and so forth. And so therefore, when I completed my degree, I thought, okay, is this where I see myself? And so therefore, I decided to enroll for a PGCE, and I completed the 1-year PGCE at Stellenbosch University. And so, so I remember during my PGCE, I had to teach these school learners at the school at Stellenbosch. And I think after that, I realized, okay, this is actually where I want to be. And ever since then, I don't regret being, a teacher. And then I think about 2015, I saw the opportunity to apply for a post at CPUT, and I took the opportunity and then got the job. So I've been teaching here for the last 5 years at CPUT.
Oh, wow. And I think that is how I came to know you and your family. And I know that you are quite a strong academic family. And I also know that professorship for you is not far out of reach. I've had a look at a few of your publications and so on. Was it a no-brainer for you to go into academics, or how did your family's standing in academia affect you? And when did the penny drop that you don't want to be just a PGCE graduate?
Yeah, I think I always intended on entering higher education, and that's why I decided while I was teaching that I would actually improve my qualifications. So I saw the opportunity to improve my not just my qualifications, but also my professional development. And I was quite fortunate at the school that I taught to be given opportunities to actually study because the principal was very accommodating. He afforded myself and even my brother, because he was also a teacher with me at the time, to pursue our degrees, our postgraduate degrees. And because of that flexibility and with less administration at the school, which is usually quite prevalent in many schools in South Africa, I was quite fortunate enough not to be bogged down by too much administration. And so therefore, it was just, me focusing on my research capacity and teach at the same time. But I always had this inclination to want to enter higher education. I think my father has played a very profound role in terms of that. Him also being a teacher for many years, about 20 odd years. And I remember when I started out as an undergraduate student, that's quite interesting. My father, he would have classes later on. And I would also have classes later on during the day because of my timetable. But he would make sure that we wake up every single morning, 5:30, because we needed to be at campus after 6. And I couldn't understand that. It actually also allowed me the time and opportunity to actually observe my father within his own education context. Him also being a dean at the time, and visiting some of his classes, and really reflecting on where I would see myself in the next 5-10 years. I think that played a large impact in terms of where I would see myself later on. So I think the role of a parent is quite important, because whether it's your father or your mother as a role model, they play quite an important factor in terms of where you would actually see yourself. So they actually shaped me into being, academic. And I'm not only talking about my father, I'm talking about my mother as well, because she is actually the backbone. She was the very supportive mother and always encouraging us to work hard and strive to do our best.
Yeah, that is our roles, eh? Our role as mothers. Zayd, your primary research focus is on cultivating critical pedagogies in education through technology. Now, those are some big words there. For us laymen, what does that mean? Please explain to us what that means, and how do you make sure that you transfer that knowledge and skill sets to those who need it the most, and how can it therefore benefit teaching and learning in general?
Yeah. If you're looking at the concept of critical pedagogy, we're looking at Paulo Freire's work. So we're looking specifically at his idea of this banking concept. And with critical pedagogy, or rather when we're looking at the banking concept, we came with this idea that in most educational contexts, we always treat the school learner as some form of empty vessel that we need to fill in with a lot of information. And so therefore they would be expected to regurgitate what we say. So there's a lot of there's actually essentially a one-way communication. And because of that, Paulo Freire's idea of critical pedagogy looks at disrupting that banking concept, where we're actually looking at creating spaces for students to think more critically about what they learn and how they learn, instead of just, looking at the content in that matter. And Paulo Freire's idea of critical pedagogy has also influenced my own teaching, because having also reflected on my teaching as a school learner, as a university student, I always looked at, I always reflected on terms of whether I was actually making sense of what was being taught in the classroom, and how I could go about better understanding that content. I must say that as a school learner, as a university student, I always felt silent silenced to the extent that I couldn't always really express myself. And I think this is probably why I also entered teaching, because, being a teacher, you're able to express yourself, you're able to share your ideas with other students, you're able to listen to what they have to say. So there's an educational encounter that ensues. And, coming back to me being silenced in the school and university context, I wanted to look at how I can actually use the available educational technologies that are available to create a platform for my students, so that they were able to share their experiences and their knowledge and skills with me, so that there's this whole idea of co-construction of knowledge, and not just me conveying information onto them. Now, if you're looking at the World Economic Forum, it's quite descriptive in terms of the various skills that students ought to acquire, the 21st century skills, like the foundational literacies and so forth, critical thinking, problem solving, and so forth. So what I do feel is that you can't transfer skills onto students, but you need to create an environment for students so that they're able to actually learn certain skills on their own, because it's actually impossible to really transfer a skill such as critical thinking to your students. You need to, as I mentioned, create that platform so that they are able to actually learn for themselves, because if you're telling students what to do, they become so dependent on you. And so therefore, to a large extent, my research is also, and my teaching is also influenced by a prominent philosopher known as Jacques Rancière. And he came up with this theory known as the ignorant schoolmaster. So not ignorant to the extent that, as a teacher, I don't want to hear what you have to say, but ignorant in the sense that, as a teacher, you might know the content knowledge, or you might know the information, but you prefer to rather allow the student the opportunity to speak, to come to speech.
Yes.
You give them the voice. And so therefore the idea of the ignorant schoolmaster is also quite important for, I feel, should be important, that we allow our students to collaborate and to work with educators within any context.
And I think that is absolutely amazing. And how can that therefore benefit teaching and learning, to be carried into our schools? What can teachers do?
Yeah, I think the greatest challenge faced amongst, the greatest challenge faced amongst teachers in the school context is the fact that they are always required to adhere to a curriculum or to a policy statement. And so therefore, because of the fact that the policy dictates what you ought to teach in the classroom, and how you ought to teach in some instances, it allows little freedom for teachers to actually come up with more innovative and pragmatic pedagogical approaches, so that they actually, convey information, but they also create new knowledge. So something I always pick up, even with my own students, is that they're always concerned about what is coming in the exam, what text do we need to know for this case study or this assessment.
Tell me about it.
Without really thinking, okay, why am I actually learning about this content, or how will this content actually relate to my own societal context? So I think the greatest challenge, coming back to what I was saying, is that if teachers are on their own, and if they are isolated, it's quite challenging for, talking about experienced or even younger generation teachers, it's quite a challenge for a teacher to come up with an innovative solution if the entire community within the school is not willing to do so. So therefore, it can become a major barrier to you as a young teacher wanting to come up with different innovative pedagogies using technology and so forth. Therefore, you need people who buy into your idea with you and to motivate you and so forth. So I think that if young teachers and teachers have been started for the last 5 years, if they want to progress further, then I think it's very important for them to reflect on policy and in some instances even disrupting policy, so that they are able to have a different mindset in terms of their own teaching pedagogies. I remember when I attended the American Educational Research Association conference, which is the largest conference in education in the world. It's held annually, and something that attracted me to the conference, besides the fact that there's these broad ideas that these academics are always discussing, was the fact that there were many teachers at the conference, and they were actually presenting their research. And that's something you don't really find in the South African context, because you always see teachers, as I mentioned, it's just the curriculum, it's just the content. I'm not concerned about anything else, and the research is the last thing that I'm going to focus on. And so, it was quite interesting to allow these teachers, and they were young teachers, to share their research and experiences with me. And I found that quite fruitful at an academic education conference.
Yeah, I think I share your sentiments there, that our teachers, especially in South Africa, they have to become lifelong learners, because it is only through that we empower ourselves, and also our students will then see, and see us as this is how they also want to be. So what is it that you can tell the global teaching community out there? It's quite grim outside now at this stage of the pandemic, and teachers are discouraged at the current situation and with the status quo with regard to policy within specific educational districts and departments. What do you have to tell them today to lift their spirit up a little bit and to make them feel valued? What can you tell our teaching community out there?
I think with the current state of affairs, yes, it's quite challenging. I can obviously provide various solutions to you as a teacher, but the idea is that if you want to address this challenge that you are currently confronted with the fact that you are not always able now to communicate with all your students, depending on the context. So I think that if teachers are to address this challenge, they need to be motivated as part of a community, and that's where the whole spirit of Ubuntu comes into play. I think the greatest challenge, and it comes back to what I mentioned earlier, is that a teacher shouldn't be seen in isolation from other teachers and from students. And so if you, as a teacher, if you are able to cultivate this community within your school context or educational context, then you're able to address some of the major challenges that you are faced with. And it comes back to what I mentioned earlier. So if you're a teacher and you feel isolated, look at how you as a teacher can share your knowledge with your students, with other teachers, with other educational professionals, and develop this community so that you are able to develop your own cognitive capacities, your emotional capacities, and also your social capacities to progress further. So what the only advice I can give teachers with any context you find yourself in is to constantly motivate yourself and look at how you can actually progress further. Yes, COVID-19 won't last forever. There might be other challenges that you are also faced with, be grim, but it's the reality. We don't know what will happen tomorrow. It's a changing context all the time. So try to motivate yourself and look at what you can do to better yourself professionally, in terms of your teaching, in terms of your research, and in terms of your community. And I think those are the three elements that any educator or university educator needs to always have at the back of their minds to progress further. That's the fact that if you're talking about teaching, it needs to correlate to your research. It needs to correlate to your ability to actually make a meaningful contribution towards the community.
Wow, what wonderful advice there. Thank you so much, Zayd, for sharing your knowledge with us and also your wisdom, because there is a difference, we know that, and for affording us a sneak peek into your professional life. We wish you every success in your career and all your future endeavors. Thank you so much for your time and for being on this channel with us.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you to you, Dorothy, as well, for the invite again. I really appreciate it, and I just wish your channel all the best for the next few years.